next guest is Jedd Fisch, who's the new coach at the University of Arizona. An amazing resume for a relatively young man, having recently worked for Bill Belichick. He's worked for Mike Shanahan, Pete Carroll, Harbaugh, McVay, and a relationship with Steve Spurrier as well. Coach, thank you very much for being with us. It's a pleasure to welcome you here, and congratulations. And I'm sure it's been a crazy existence these last few weeks. How is it going?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It's been awesome. It's been crazy, as you imagine, but obviously it's a privilege to be here with you today and to be able to have a great conversation about what Arizona football is all about. And it's been an amazing ride, but starting in the SEC, 20 years ago, it's great to be back on the phone with you.
Coach, it's one thing if you grow up in Gainesville and go to school at the University of Florida, but you grew up, I think, in New Jersey, which opens the door for a lot of conversation here. I'll act like I've never heard this story before because a lot of people have not. But tell the audience how you ended up making that long trek from New Jersey to Gainesville.
Yeah, well, when I was growing up and when I was in high school, I made a decision that the one thing I wanted to do was coach football. And, my dad had said to me, he said, well, where do you want to go? And I said, well, Steve Spurrier, it's the 1990s. Where else would you want to go? And he's like, okay, well, how are you going to do that? I didn't realize how difficult it was necessarily going to be. But I went to school, or I applied to get into school and tried to get a student assistant job. They didn't have that at that time. Then I tried to get an equipment manager job. They didn't have that at that time available, or I didn't get it at least. So I went with a different approach. I just started leaving notes on Coach Spurrier's windshield and tried to find a way to get in to talk with him, and started coaching high school football at PK Young, school where Chris Doering graduated from and Travis McGriff graduated from, and a lot of other Gator greats, Terry Jackson. And while I was leaving notes and coaching high school ball, I finally got a call that he'd give me 5 minutes of his time. And with that, I was able to parlay it into to being the copy machine guy. And next thing you know, I was a graduate assistant a couple years later.
Coach, we all love Coach Spurrier, but he's a fidgety guy, and he's got an attention span of about 2 seconds. So when you finally got in front of him, what was your sales pitch?
I think he likes free. Coach Spurrier likes free. So I said, Coach, I'm going to do this for free. I have no agenda. I just want to learn from you. I want to be a part of what you're doing. And I know that you might not have a lot of students here, but give me an opportunity. And Buddy Tevens and Dwayne Dixon kind of took care of me at that time and brought me in. And fortunately enough, a couple years later, I got to become a GA, and I got to return the favor and hire his son to be a special teams analyst for us this year. So it's a pretty cool how it goes full circle.
I want to get to Arizona in a minute, but I mean, when I went over that list of coaching Hall of Famers that you have been associated with up until recently with Bill Belichick, I mean, they're all different, but you're talking about Belichick and Spurrier and Pete Carroll and McVay, who's obviously on the young end of that. You could literally do a dissertation on great coaches. I know you're on the way to becoming one yourself, but what have you learned from all these giants of the game?
The biggest thing I learned is to be myself when the opportunity does present. All of these guys are so good at what they do, but they're so different and unique in how they do it. Obviously, from Coach Carroll to Coach Belichick, you couldn't have more opposite in regards to how they do things, but as similar in terms of how many wins they can have. The one thing you recognize is the process is so important, but how you go about it and what's the challenge, and every day just kind of take on that approach that my goal is to do the very best job I can do, but always remembering what Coach Shanahan and Coach McVay and Coach Harbaugh and obviously Coach Belichick and Coach Carroll and what they kind of always meant to me, which was, hey, be yourself, do what you feel is the right thing to do. And in turn, if you work really hard and you treat people with respect and loyalty, good things will come.
Coach, is there a commonality between all of them that makes them so great?
Yeah, for me, I would say it's their competitive edge. All of those guys are so competitive. Whether you're on a golf course, whether you're on a basketball court, whether you're coaching football, there's this competitive edge. There's this competitive stamina that the opportunity to compete at every minute of every level, and then also take on that mindset of, you're not going to beat me mentality. That's kind of been the number one thing that I would say rides through from Coach Spurrier through Coach Belichick, and hopefully we'll be able to take that mentality here in Tucson.
Let's talk about Tucson, because last year was tough, and sometimes, well, most of the time, that's a reason why there's a coaching change. So, as you're familiar with the Pac-12, obviously, you were at UCLA, you've been around that part of the country. So let's talk about what's ahead and the challenges of making Arizona great again.
Yeah, well, we're really taking on the approach of every day is an opportunity for us to change the fortunes of the recent past, remind ourselves of all the successes that were had in the 90s, and then try to get us back there and then build this thing to last. There's obviously been some great success here when Dick Tomey and Larry Smith were here, but that's 20 years ago. And Rich Rod and Mike Stoops had some successes as well. But what we need to do is we need to try to build that consistent success. And with that, it's going to come a ton of hard work. We got to really do a good job of recruiting the right players, smart players, tough players, physical players, use all of our resources and use of all of our connections. We hired Don Brown from Michigan to be our defensive coordinator, which I'm thrilled to death to have him on board. We hired Brennan Carroll, Pete's son, to be our offensive coordinator. So we're going to try to put all of our resources, all of our connections, all of our experiences together and really try to bring a great football team to Tucson and do it year in and year out.
Coach Jedd, we're talking to Coach Jedd Fisch. I know obviously recruiting is the lifeblood of any college program, but when you're recruiting, I know you have to sell the University of Arizona, but young kids all want to go to the next level beyond college. How often, I realize you're fairly new at this job, does your experiences, 13 years in the NFL with great quarterbacks, how often does that come up?
Well, we bring it up often, and we use it as part of our messaging. And we have on our full staff, I think we have 75 years of NFL experience with Chuck Cecil and Ricky Hundley, and then Brennan and myself and Scotty Graham, our running back coach, and Dwayne Walker, our defensive backs coach. And our message is this: we know what it looks like. We also know how hard it is. And what we want to try to help our guys get to is we want to give you the opportunity to compete to get to the NFL. And what we'll do is we'll do everything we can to show you the way, talk to you about what it's like in a draft room, talk to you about what coaches and coordinators and scouts and general managers are looking for, and really, what a pro day and what a combine and what the Senior Bowl is actually like. But in the same token, we also recognize that 98% of them are probably not going to make it for over a couple of years. And what happens then? And what can we do to help connect you to the next part of your life, the next level? Show you the way to the NFL, but try to help you become a pro. And if becoming a pro means becoming a businessman or becoming a college graduate and moving on in life, we want to help you do that as well.
Finally, Coach, I'm curious about the philosophy of the NFL versus college, because there used to be a pretty strong distinction between what the two are doing, but now it seems like the NFL is paying pretty close attention to college, and you're obviously in Arizona. We've seen Urban Meyer just make the move to Jacksonville. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Paul. It's becoming more and more intermingled, the two leagues, and it really comes down to the fact that the college, 4 years of college football, that's a lot of reps. And I think what happened was early on, maybe probably 10 years ago or 15 years ago when I was starting in the NFL, it was trying to immediately make people pro players versus college players. And now the mentality is, how good of a football team can you be? How good of a football player can you be? And play into their skill set. I mean, I had Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham last year. I had Jared Goff the year before. So you're talking about two completely different skill sets per se, but you've got to be able to adjust and make them work. And the way the league is trending now, the league wants guys that can make plays. And at the quarterback position specifically, because I think the skill guys are the skill guys. The pass rushers are the pass rushers. That's not going to be really affected. What we've noticed is the change is that quarterback position. And less people are caught up in, what type of quarterback you have, and more try to adjust to who you have and do a great job with them.
Coach Jedd Fisch, the new coach at the University of Arizona. Coach, thanks for making time. I know you got a lot on your plate, but we had a blast listening to your stories, and all the very best.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate you having me on. Take care.
Oh, we're absolutely delighted. Thank you very much, Coach. What an unbelievably interesting coach, and we really just barely pulled the curtain down. There's a lot to